Good morning, I'm Kathy San Gabriel. Today is the second day of a most significant event in the Philippines. Top international policy and decision makers have gathered in the country to help improve the state of the world.
Improvement denotes a betterment of an existing condition or situation. Participating governments, organizations, and individuals are exerting a concerted effort to achieve this improvement. And for the first time, the Philippines is hosting the event. Good morning, I'm Robert Tan.
The annual summit has for its theme this year, leveraging growth for equitable progress. We will come to the understanding precisely what this means to us and to the rest of the world. Here on PTV4's special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014.
What began as a regional and private organization has evolved into a powerful global body committed to the improvement of the state of the world through public-private cooperation. The World Economic Forum, a non-profit impartial foundation, was known as the European Management Forum until 1987. The forum was created in 1971 when European business leaders met in Davos, Switzerland, under the auspices of the European Commission and European industrial unions. The meeting was chaired by German Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and chairman of the WEF. Schwab is credited for the concept of stakeholder principle, in which an enterprise is held responsible not only for the welfare of its shareholders, but also of its employees, customers, and suppliers, as well as government and civil society and everyone else related to its operations. The principle also gave birth to corporate social responsibility, where stakeholders now embrace all members of society, including and especially the underprivileged.
What we are doing is very complex. We are a foundation the key decision makers from all walks of life to address the challenges on the global agenda. The annual meeting, which is the annual meeting of our members and constituents, 2,000 people from politics and business. That's the top of the iceberg. What we are doing here is following up many issues, providing frameworks for solutions, looking at industry agendas. We have a number of public-private partnerships, and so on and so on. A lot to do.
For the past decades, the World Economic Forum has bridged gaps between cultures and nations and has opened the doors for communication among peoples, regardless of ideology and gender and age.
We help them to create networks and through the networks to raise finance also. And another very important constituency are our young global leaders, because we feel today's problems need fresh solutions, creative solutions. They need new thinking, and you find this new thinking among the young people.
The World Economic Forum has acted as catalyst in major global initiatives, among which are the fight against AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, and has played a key role in the expansion of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the development of the G20 concept. For the past 20 years, the World Economic Forum has been bringing together world leaders, thinkers, and the youth who have brought forth ideas and solutions in a spirit of cooperation and non-partisanship. Held in what was once a strife-torn Myanmar, the World Economic Forum in East Asia in 2013 exemplifies how far the foundation has gone in the fulfillment of its commitment to improve the state of the world.
There are those who will be serving the Burmese people in future who are seeing the way democracy can be carried out and having open discussions now about infrastructure, about political change, about democracy. It's one of those moments in my career where I say, wow.
For the special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014, Vera Mines.
As host of the forum, the Philippines mounted preparations fit for a major world occasion. Delegates began to arrive Monday. As earlier reported on PTV4, about 600 leaders from 30 countries are participating in the summit.
These are leaders from business, government, civil society, the academe, and the youth. They started discussing various areas of consideration yesterday in what has been termed as private industry and constituency meetings.
The Philippine government transformation centered on the benefit of the Filipino people. President Aquino said this during the courtesy call of the ASEAN Business Club led by its chairman Jaime Sobel de Ayala, CEO of Ayala Corporation, and Dato Zain Nazir Arazak, executive ZIMB Group of Malaysia. Members of the ASEAN Business Club will participate in the 23rd World Economic Forum.
Whenever my administration is lauded for the progress our country has made, we are always quick to remind the world the transformation of the Philippines is a collective achievement, built on the shoulders of a people prepared to undertake the difficult task of reform together. It began back in 2010 when our countrymen took a stand against corruption and impunity and gave us the mandate for change, a mandate we would fulfill by eradicating corruption and fostering inclusive, equitable growth. My administration has been doing precisely this for almost 4 years now. Whether it is cutting down red tape to allow businesses to set up shop more easily, or plugging leaks and instituting reforms in our budgeting process, whether it is making massive investments in our people through skills training and education, health and social services, or enhancing the state of national infrastructure, every single step government has taken has been for the welfare of the Filipino people.
In his meeting with the ASEAN businessmen, the President assured the country's readiness to expand economic opportunities. The President reiterated that from being the sick man of Asia, the Philippines is now poised in the age of economic progress as a result of transparency to curb graft and corruption. The Chief Executive cited the investment-grade status upgrade given to the Philippines by the 3 international credit rating agencies.
It's the time to expand your connections and forge stronger relationships with your Filipino counterparts. The success story of the Philippines thus far is proof positive that, with the desire to uplift our fellow men and the dedication to work alongside each other, we can reach greater heights. May I invite you then to consider joining us, working with us even more in harnessing the opportunities and potentials in our country today. With the Philippines on an economic upswing and the integration of ASEAN on the horizon, we are poised on the edge of even more meaningful progress. Progress that we can realize today in this visit, and in what I trust will be many more visits to come.
Sobel and Razak assured business confidence with the Philippine economy under the Aquino administration.
I think for this whole group here, Mr. President, the Philippines has emerged as a clear choice to visit at this time when your leadership, your team's leadership, have really provided the country with an outstanding performance at this point in its history. We believe all of these results are a testament to the kind of leadership, transparency, and strength that the country has shown under your leadership and your government's team.
We think we have much to contribute to support the ASEAN economic community, to give our perspectives, as many of us are already operating across the region.
The ASEAN Business Club is a private sector and has been a venue to bring together leaders to understand and help shape the growing connectivity among ASEAN economies, including the Philippines. For the People's Television, Rock Ignacio.
We have only begun. There's so much more to discuss when we return on PTV4 special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014.
When we hear economics, what often comes to mind is figures, business, income, trade, and industry. This holds true for the World Economic Forum, but not totally. And joining us this morning is the honorary chairman of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Donald D. He will share with us the deeper implications of an event such as the World Economic Forum on East Asia. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Robert.
Sir, how significant is it to the Philippines that we are hosting the World Economic Forum?
Well, the World Economic Forum could not have come at a better time. All of us know that in the past year we have been talked about, and we're now back in the radar screen of everybody in the business community, as well as in all forums, whether it's regional or multilateral. So if you have been traveling lately, you will find that when you say you're Filipinos, they say, "Oh, how did you do it? How come all of a sudden you're now one of the fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia?" So it's really the best time to have this.
Sir, we have been referred to before as the sick man of Asia, and now we are being referred to as a miracle in terms of the economy. How do you think did we do it, and what contributed to this?
I think initially you must say that over the years, we have been managing our finances, public finance, very, very well. And we have, in fact, been able to stabilize our economy. Today, the past 3 years, for example, we have broadened our tax take. So our ability to give more for social services has also impacted. And everybody, especially the credit rating agencies all over the world have focused on us, have noticed us that all our basic fundamentals, our macroeconomic fundamentals are very good. You will also see that for the past 2 years, we have continuously increased our standing in the World Economic Competitiveness Report. We are, again, the country that has jumped by leaps and bounds. At the beginning of the 3 years period, we were at the bottom part of the economic survey. Now we are moving up, and we are really even ahead of our target to be in the top 30% or top tier of that economic survey.
So adding to that, how do we gauge ourselves among our ASEAN neighbors when it comes to competitiveness?
Well, again, when we say competitiveness, we are looking at how open our economy has become. We're looking at how the ease of doing business, how to register our businesses. And in this area, we have been really implementing and improving our relationships in the area of local governance. So here when we compare ourselves with the other members in the region, we must say that it is very obvious that we have moved much faster than them.
Sir, we are looking forward to the ASEAN integration next year. There are, of course, challenges and benefits to this. Can you briefly discuss these with us?
Well, I think the public should understand that it's not going to be a shocking change come December 31, 2015. We've been working on this for 2 decades already, and as far as trade in goods, we have already integrated we have already a common tariff in ASEAN, and we have reduced our tariff by 99% of our products. So only very sensitive products have we kept the tariff and quantity restraint. So as far as trade in goods, there's not really much, but the integration will come in the area of services and the other pillars of the economic community. So I think what we're doing right now, and which we will continue to pipe in our SMEs into the supply chain of the ASEAN companies.
Sir, the region has been racked with political instability recently, with Thailand going under martial rule. How will this impact on the ASEAN integration, and what effect will this have on our country?
The economic situation in Southeast Asia, especially after the last financial crisis, have shown that it is necessary for the foreign investors to spread out their risk and not concentrate all their goods in just one country. In Thailand, for example, they had the floods. Now they have the political problem. Vietnam, for example, has some problems as well. So what we have to do in the Philippines is to make sure that we send the proper signals to the investors all over the world that here we're peace-loving, we're stable, we do not, while we have the problems similar to Vietnam, what we do is we continue to push for solutions, peaceful solutions through international arbitration. So as we handle these situation, well, I think that you will find that we will really be the country of choice as far as putting a secondary manufacturing facilities for the investors.
So now when we look at all these issues, whether economic or political, what kind of communication do we have from our business community to our ASEAN neighbors to ensure that when we talk and when we do business with each other, we put in place certain safety nets to ensure that crises like this don't happen?
Well, crisis we cannot avoid. I mean, it's beyond our control. It's how we manage the crisis. For example, in Thailand, the political divide is such that the politicians there's no statesman in Thailand. So there is no discussion going on, no compromises going on, and that's why you have this long stalemate leading to this current regime. I think it doesn't happen here in our country. We're more open. Our politicians, in fact, are constantly talking with each other, maybe arguing with each other, but at the end, we know how to compromise and we know how to move ahead.
Sir, let's talk about corruption. The World Economic Forum, 23rd World Economic Forum on East Asia will focus also on the fight against corruption. And we know that the battle cry of the administration is Daang Matuwid. How does good governance translate to good economics?
You know, when you're talking of good economics or expanding in attracting our country for direct foreign investment, it's very important that they see that we're able to go beyond the problems of corruption. Example, they would be very afraid if we, for example, are not able to solve the problem of smuggling. For some sectors, this is very, very serious. The other thing is they want to see sustainable policies in place. When there is corruption, when there is no policy, people make decision. People in government make decision based on on the deals that they can make. So again, if we are very fortunate that we are now looked upon as a country that's doing a lot of progress when it comes to fighting smuggling, and we are now more transparent. I hope that with the passage of Freedom of Information Act, this will further enhance their confidence.
So now, in light of this, sir, now, how is our climate in terms of doing business here internally here in the Philippines?
Well, we have improved a lot as far as when we say doing business, really for SMEs, they are really not looking at the institution here in the National Capital Region. They work closer with the local governments. Mm-hmm. And in the past, local governments do not have established procedure in how to open a business, how to get the permits, and even simple things like mayor permits could be very, very difficult. Today, they have all published processes in all the municipal halls, so people now are more confident that they can get their business going, and most mayors have become, and governors have become very business friendly.
So adding to that, SMEs play a big part in nation building and also building businesses here in the Philippines. Now, what does the business community try to, projects, or how do you make it easier for SMEs to come in? We know right now it's not really formally within the business community. How can we help them?
As far as the Philippine Chamber of Commerce is concerned, we have put up a whole section just dedicated to SMEs in conjunction with the Department of Trade and Industry. We try to handhold the SMEs that come to us, or we go through them actually, through our local chambers, and we teach them how to evolve a business plan so that they can present it to the banks. We also have a very big program come October of this year, where we have asked 80 big to now start meeting our members to find out how they can pipe in or connect with the local, with these big companies into the supply chain. There are foreign companies there, the American companies doing business in ASEAN. There are Canadian companies, Japanese, as well as Indonesians, Malaysians in that forum that we're creating.
Mr. D, we have said earlier that this is an important event in our country. This is the first time we are hosting the World Economic Forum. But what impact will this have on the common tao? How will this help Juan de la Cruz with his everyday life?
Well, you know, while we are looking at the forum itself, the important, or what we're going to be able to take advantage of, are the side meetings between businessmen. For example, the next 2 days, we're very busy meeting with the various foreign business delegations here. So we think that the end game here is, of course, to create joint ventures, to invite them to come into our country, to invest. Once they invest, this will create jobs, and therefore, it will give and improve our people.
Thank you very much for your time. Honorary Chairman and COC of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Donald D.
Thank you.
There are business leaders who look at the Philippines hosting of the World Economic Forum as a coming-out party to showcase the country's impressive economic growth. Freddy Abando tells us more about this.
The World Economic Forum on East Asia is the country's coming-out party to showcase the gains under the Aquino administration for the past 3 years. 600 delegates are converging in Manila, from heads of state to finance ministers of ASEAN, top business and economic leaders of the global community, the foreign press, and non-government organizations. From boom and bust, the country's economic growth was sustained for the past 15 years. The last 3 years under the watch of President Aquino registered the highest, with a 7.2% growth in 2013. The President's policy of reforms has been the benchmark in enhancing the country's competitiveness in the global economy.
We're hosting APEC, hosted ADB before. I think that just shows you that there's more attention now to the Philippines. We should follow through on the transformation and the governance reforms. We should follow through on investments in infrastructure and our people. We should follow through in making sure that we're more competitive so that we're ready for whatever competition throws at us.
Despite all political upheavals, the ERA period, the Julio Garcia period, and in addition, we're seeing rising growth rates. The growth rates now are higher than, for instance, when I was in government, and even during the Ramos period. So the question is, how much of this is due to unique characteristics of the Philippine economy that has nothing to do with leadership, and how much of this has to do with leadership? And I say both.
We're extremely happy, to be hosting World Economic Forum. It's the first time in over 20 years that it's been running in East Asia, and the pattern has been that they tend to go to a country which is really beginning to break its pattern, move up competitiveness rankings, strong economic growth, and it's really breaking out, So I think picking the Philippines this year is a recognition that the country has really picked up the pace and shown the world what it can do. And just like it picked other countries before, it's picked the Philippines this year.
The Philippines is rising as the strongest economy in ASEAN for 2014. There is a long list of factors to back the optimism of the global community. The competitiveness ranking in the World Economic Forum has improved significantly in good governance, tourism prospects, information technology, the gender gap, and trade facilitation. The rating upgrade to investment grade and the giant leap in the ease of doing business are all positive factors which make the Philippines an ideal investment destination for foreign investors to explore opportunities and be part of Asia's emerging economic tiger.
We're up, and we're up in a big way. I mean, if you take a look at the overall global competitiveness report, we're up by 26 in the last 3 years since the Aquino administration has come into office. On tourism, we're up by about 12. Enabling trade, we're up by 8. And IT, we're also up by 8. and it's in gender gap report, which I think is might surprise people. We're number 5 worldwide, and the only ASEAN country in the top 10.
The skyline of Metro Manila is a perfect symbol to show that the Philippines is moving forward. The construction boom, the surge of manufacturing, the increasing flow of tourist arrivals, a solid and stable banking industry, sustained consumption spending fueled by overseas Filipino workers, the rapid rise of information technology, increasing investments in infrastructure and social protection programs for the poor has advanced the country as a model for sustained economic and inclusive growth.
The key there is, of course, that the government has programs. It takes advantage of the financial situation to have programs that will make growth inclusive. In other words, jobs must be created, the children of the poor must have access to nutrition so that they will be much healthier and smarter than their parents. And of course, that we create an environment where entrepreneurs are willing to come and employ Filipinos in the Philippines rather than in their home countries.
For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abanda reporting.
When we return, we'll have more of PTV4's special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014.
We're back with our special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014. Prior to this event, the Philippines' credit standing was upgraded 4 times in a row by highly reputable international credit ratings bodies. Elena Luna tells us more.
Before hosting the World Economic Forum on East Asia, the Philippines received 4 consecutive credit rating upgrades from 3 international rating agencies. It was the first time for the Philippines to bag the seal of good fiscal housekeeping from Fitch Ratings when it lifted the country's credit ratings to investment grade March last year. From BB+, Fitch raised the Philippines' long-term foreign currency IDR or issuer default rating to BBB-. In the same way, the long-term local currency IDR was raised to BBB from BBB-. Fitch cited the fiscal reforms of the Philippines, noting how governance has strengthened the Philippine momentum. It noted the economy's resilience, which expanded 6.6% above the targeted 5 to 6% growth. It also credited the government's fiscal discipline and improvements in fiscal management that began under President Aquino. 2 months later, Standard & Poor's Rating Services handed the Philippines its second investment grade. From BB+, the country's credit rating went up 1 notch to BBB- with a stable outlook. S.M.E cited the improved fiscal flexibility and the strengthened ability of the Philippines to pay its debts to foreign investors.
The question of inclusiveness is one that strikes the very essence of growth. Do we define growth as the mere amassing of wealth, the mere swelling of the gross national product regardless of who benefits? Or do we decide and abide by the principle that the strength of nation lies in its people, that the fair and just way forward, indeed the only way forward, is for government to ensure that the system allows for equitability, where every citizen, regardless of status of birth or personal network or circumstances, is allowed the opportunity to shape his destiny through his own ability.
Days before President Aquino addressed the international community at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC Summit in Bali, Indonesia last October, he brought of good news. Moody's Investors Service upgraded the rating of the Philippines by 1 notch from BA1 to BAA3. Moody's cited the following factors for the upgrade. First is the sustainability of the country's robust economic performance. Second, the ongoing fiscal and debt consolidation. And finally, the political stability and improved governance. From the APEC Summit, President Aquino went home, dubbed as the leader of one of Asia's rising economic star. The Philippines continues to shine its star when it obtained its highest credit rating in history from Standard & Poor's. From the previous rating of BBB-, S.M.E rated the Philippines at BBB. This is the best grade the Philippines has ever received from any of the three major credit rating agencies. Malacanang is hopeful the investment grade will eventually translate into increased investments and accelerated jobs. PCOO Secretary Herminio Coloma Jr. said the Aquino administration is committed to strengthen public institutions and build increased capacity among citizens to promote inclusive growth.
Sa kanilang pakiwari, merong basis o merong batayan para umasa na ang mga kasalukuyang reforma at ang kasalukuyang magandang performance ng Philippine economy ay masusustain beyond the term of the Aquino administration. Sa aking palagay, yun ang mas mahalagang aspeto ng Standard & Poor's Investment Upgrade Report.
This year, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is optimistic other rating agencies will recognize the Philippines' ability to implement and sustain tough reforms. For the People's Television, Elena Luna.
You know, Robert, these ratings upgrades can translate into a bigger challenge to the Aquino administration because the challenge is how will this growth, this economic growth, trickle down to the masses?
But you know, what's good about it is that, you know, you take a certain pride when you see outside observers looking into the Philippines, seeing it as a very economically stable and creditworthy country where foreign investments could come in. Now, in light of the inclusive growth, you know, it will take time. But if we do get a lot of foreign investments to come in, and with the Philippines, as observed by the outside forces, seeing that it's viable to invest here, that could actually happen.
Much of this investor confidence, Robert, has been attributed to fiscal reforms done by the administration and also to the fight against corruption, which the government really concentrates on.
And it's really good timing now that we are hosting the World Economic Forum to showcase, you know, what the Philippines have taken steps into making the Philippines more viable in terms of foreign investments, doing the inclusive growth, and also with the government's push in really doing transparency and anti-corruption campaigns.
However, Robert, there is still much work to be done. The government plans to improve its ranking in the ease of doing business, and it is in the bottom half, although our ratings have significantly improved. Plan to be on the upper 60 by 2016, so that's the bigger challenge by the to the administration.
And you know, Kathy, as we know by now, an impressive credit rating spurs investments. As we angle for more investments, we also present proof that the Philippines has all the right ingredients to lure investors to its shores. Crizel Lacson shares with the world the reasons why the country is headed for a higher and brighter future.
Once in a slump, now booming with life and promise, the Philippines has become more and more attractive to investors because of its rapid economic growth and is continuing to attract large-scale industries. Brazil, Russia, India, and China may be the focus point of foreign investors, but recently the Pearl of the Orient has become an exciting destination. The country has become noteworthy for a multitude of reasons. One is the improved political environment. The Aquino administration's reform agenda has paid dividends in the previous years. For the first quarter of 2013, we beat China's gross domestic product growth, and by the end of the same year, we grew by 7.2% in the Southeast Asian region. The sin tax reform has and continues to raise money to redeploy infrastructure attract global business with corporate expanding options in the country. Already more and more international companies have invested in the Philippines. The most notable is the business outsource BPO sector. Since 2006, the BPO index has grown 46% annually. In 2012, it has generated more than $15 billion revenues. Last year, it grew 17% to $15.5 billion. It also employs 900,000 Filipinos, with international clients asking for more to be done in the country. And now the Philippines is the choice for services and the preferred location for non-voices. The economy is also resilient. Approximately 10.5 million work abroad and send part salaries families back. Just last March, the Bank of the Philippines reported that total personal remittances for this $1 billion. This put the first figure $5.1 billion, 6% higher than last 2013. This steady stream of inflow has and continues to insulate us from the effects of international market downturns. International corporations need not worry about the cost of doing business in the Philippines. Wages in the Philippines are normally less than a fifth of that in the United States. This is because our housing, local communication, and electricity costs are 50% lower compared to the US. On the average, foreign companies estimate that they save 30 to 40% in business costs, 15 to 30% in call center services and application systems, and 35 to 50% in software development. But perhaps the most compelling advantage of the Philippines is its workforce. We are the world's third largest English-speaking country, and our fluency sets us apart from other Asian countries. Our literacy rate is at 94.6%, which is among the highest in the continent. And every year, 350,000 graduates enrich the professional pool. But most of all, we are known for being hardworking and positive, which gives us an edge over the rest. For the past 10 years, the Philippines has undergone a transition. Global information company IHS reports that with our capacity to post long-term economic growth, we are set to become a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Our GDP will jump from $2,800 per person this year to $5,800 per person by 2024, and will make us one of ASEAN's largest consumer markets in the future. The future is bright for Filipinos, and already we are reaping the rewards of a bolstered economy. The world has its eye on us, and investors are excited about the potential of the country. In just a few years, we will see the total transformation of the Philippines, from being a pussycat to a tiger economy. For People's Television, Kring Lacson.
We'll have more to come, including live feeds and video streaming on our special coverage of the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014. For special coverage of the 23rd World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014, and to give us his thoughts and insights on this ongoing event, we have with us a former banker and a businessman and political analyst, Mr. Ramon Orosa. Welcome and good morning to you, Mr. Orosa.
Good morning to you and to all of your guests who are watching this program. May you have a great day today.
The World Economic Forum last year came out with the Global Competitiveness Index, and the Philippines was ranked 59th among 148 countries. We have our rankings have significantly improved. But what does this mean to us, and what does this mean to businessmen?
You know, one of the promises of the president during his campaign was that he would simplify the process of getting into business. That is, of course, always very important, especially for foreign investments. They don't want to get caught in red tape. So the whole process here is going to be judged on whether, in fact, the red tape has been reduced. The second aspect of foreign investments, and I think it's something that really deserves very serious consideration, and it's been a stumbling block to the Philippines, and that's why we have always been historically been lagging in foreign investments, is because every new administration changes the rules of the game. And this is something which many foreign investors just hate to see, that once they go in thinking these are the rules of the game, and it tends to change every 4 to 6 years. Depending upon who comes in. And the third aspect of that, of course, is the national policies on foreign investments may be fine, but then they encounter roadblocks in the LGUs, where all the different cities start putting up and trying to increase their revenues and change, again, the economic picture of foreign investments. And of course, these are the things that need to be harmonized, and there has to be far greater harmonization and cooperation and rationalization between the LGUs and the national government. We are making some progress there, but I think we have quite a distance to go. But the fact that the government today is paying attention to a lot of graft and corruption, of course, is a healthy development. Question is, once we discover how the extent of the graft and corruption, it might create a situation that will be very difficult to try and remedy and manage when you discover that there are very few people left who might pass the test of integrity in government service.
talk about corruption, but you've mentioned a while ago the ease of doing business. The government has taken steps in making it easier and cheaper for businessmen to do business here in our country, but what needs to be done?
Okay, I think in terms of what needs to be done, a lot of reforms have already been done at the Securities and Exchange Commission, which makes it somewhat easier to start off a business. The other one then is going through the hurdle in the DTI for foreign investments and whatever incentives the country might be willing to offer to allow certain types of industries to come in. Number three is the question simply of trying to determine what kind of industries do we want the foreign investors to come in here. This is why in the recent past there has been a move to try to amend the Constitution to loosen some of the limitations that are presently contained in our Constitution, like investments in this or that industry that have been reserved for Filipinos. Have the economic conditions in our country changed enough for us to loosen this? Because there are, of course, enough nationalists in this country, whether they're properly enlightened or not, who want to reserve the Philippines for Filipinos. And to some extent, that is a somewhat realistic thing because you can no longer live for your own self. What is being emphasized even by the World Economic Forum, a community of nations, and we better start talking to each other and coming to terms with how we are going to interact one with the other, and that involves both policy, personal or labor policies, investment policies, and some of the bilateral agreements that may be developing as far as one and the other nation is might be concerned.
So you mentioned some sectors are trying to see if we need to actually change some of the economic provisions in the Constitution. Is there really a need for that to actually create an ease of doing business here in the Philippines?
Well, that is not so much a question of ease of doing because the other one involves processes and procedures. The other one involves policy. So once the policy is determined so that it becomes very clear, you can go into this or that business and or you can only hold so many % of it. It's like, for example, when you build a condominium. Right now, foreign investment in a condominium is limited to 40% of that condominium. 60% has to be owned by Filipinos. And I question the wisdom of that thing because they cannot take the condominium home even if they want to divest, sell in this market or internationally. In any case, I don't think there is any threat to our own nation or to our own economy if a condominium is 60% or 70% owned by foreigners. I don't see that as too much of a problem economically. So that is one area, for example, that may need to be changed. We might need to be able to expand the ownership of commercial property as opposed to agricultural properties. And right now, our Constitution does not really make a distinction between one and the other, although it allows leases to be taken over property. But if you are going to put up a factory, many foreign investors might prefer, I want to own the land where the factory is being built. Now, is there any threat to the national economy if you owned half a hectare or 1 hectare of land where you put up a huge factory? I don't think so. And I don't see that as a real barrier to our own national interests.
Well, as we see, there still needs a lot to be done. But as we see in the local picture, doing business here in the Philippines, how do we actually combine that and leverage that with what the outsiders see the Philippines as being a viable country to put foreign investments in? How do we leverage that for them to come in? Sir?
Can you just kind of repeat that? I couldn't.
Looking outside, now outside observers see us as a viable country to put foreign investments in. And now how do we combine that into trying to make the Philippines a better place for doing business to create leverage?
Okay, one of the main areas that I think we need a great deal of effort is how to improve the productivity of our labor. The true measure of a nation's ability to create wealth is the productivity of its labor. We cannot be simply a low-skill labor source because then the more sophisticated forms of investment cannot enter into our country. And number two, it prevents more technological transfer to this nation if all you have are basically manual labor people. And this is where, for example, adult education and skills training are going to be extremely important to make our own people much more productive from a manufacturing, agriculture, or any other type of investment. The problem we face is that most and so much of our own skilled labor are outside the country serving other nations abroad, the OFWs. And so who are left here are the less capable labor force. And that is, for example, even today, to find a good carpenter is hard. To find a good electrician is hard. To find a good plumber is hard. To find a good welder is difficult. And this is where the government and private sector must come together in order to solve some of the technological and skills gap that presently exists, that prevents us from really taking off from an economic standpoint, because we just don't have the skilled and competent labor force that industry will need and foreign investments will need. That is, of course, just one area. Now, the second thing, of course, is how do you build small and medium-sized industries in this country? Again, it is not just of trying to go to an entrepreneurship course. There are a lot of things that have to be done, and some of them are fundamentally social in character, because what makes an SME succeed is fundamentally the discipline that the entrepreneur applies to his own personal life and to the business. Many failures in the SMEs result from the inability to draw a line between your own personal circumstances and needs and what the business might require, and what it ends up happening the business gets sacrificed because of the personal needs of the entrepreneur.
All right, before I ask you my next question, Mr. Orosa, we will be showing you live video from the EDSA Shangri-La Hotel, where in minutes from now we will be airing to you live from there, the Philippines, the next Asian miracle, and they are preparing the conference room for that event, so we will be bringing it to you live minutes from now. Mr. Orosa, you've mentioned OFWs. We both know that this is both a boon and a bane for our country. Although we are losing quality workforce, they also contribute a lot to our economy. So how do we keep quality workers in our country without losing their contribution to the economy?
Well, it's a matter of choice. The ones that are already overseas, but their contracts there are not forever. At some point in time, they will come. The question is, when they come back, they may have accumulated a little bit of money, but are they ready to go into some kind of SME business, or are they ready to be employed here? And what kind of employment opportunities are available here, considering what they are, what their experience might have been overseas? Now, some of those workers, big machine operators, welders, and all the rest of them, they ought to be able to come here. But right now, I think the biggest source of skilled labor needs is still the construction industry, and they're already encountering a terrible shortage of competent people. And that's, of course, what needs to be looked at. That's what needs to be done to try to control that. We are becoming a consumer economy here because of the remittances of the OFW people. It is what is sustaining the demand, let's say, for condominiums and for the continued rise of malls and high-rise buildings. But how far can that go? There has already been talk that maybe, hey, are we getting to a point of saturation, or are we building too fast in terms of what the economy might be growing? Because the remittances of OFWs are still going up, but they are growing up at a slower pace. So the question is, dumating na ba tayo? Have we reached that saturation point? Same thing for our business processing businesses here, which is also fueling the demand for commercial buildings to house them. Now, to what extent can there be, because that's at the bottom of the totem pole of skilled labor for business outsourcing. And so what has got to be done is, can we find some method of increasing their own skills so that they are not a job where really there is no promotion. You are there sitting down 6, 7 days a week for 8 or 10, however many hours you are employed. But where can you go from there? Are you going to be there for the next 20 years? So there are many problems and questions that are being posed by some of the directions that we are taking. We take advantage of what the OFWs remit, but at the same time, government and private industry must really come and band themselves together to be able to increase our inventory of skills that our own laborers represent.
Well, I guess that issue on the OFWs is pretty complicated, you know, remittances as to bring them back here for skills. Now, so you mentioned the key here is productivity, increasing skills. Now, the government is working a lot with regards to TESDA and creating more skilled laborers here in the Philippines. Now, with that aspect, what now can the private sector do to help and have a convergence and synergy so that, you know, when they provide skilled workers, the private sector can actually provide jobs for them?
You know, one of the things that government can do is provide incentives to private industry to develop their own training programs and let that become tax deductible, and give them incentives like, you know, double. You can deduct from your income taxes, for example, 1.5 or 1.25 or whatever it costs you to train people. That's, I think, very important in order to be able to bring the synergy together between the private sector and the government, rather than simply the government doing everything and the private sector just sitting back doing very little.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for joining us here today. That was Mr. Ramon Orosa, a businessman and a political analyst. Now, one of the key points of discussion in the ongoing World Economic Forum is ASEAN integration. In 2015, the coming together of member nations of the Association Nations as a community will be realized. Sam Ramirez discusses the pillars that will prop up the forthcoming ASEAN community.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, of 10 member states, namely Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. The region has more than 600 million citizens and a combined gross domestic product of $2.1 trillion in 2013. A region with many languages, beliefs, traditions, and cultures. A region dreamed to be borderless, united, and connected by 2015. In 1997, during the ASEAN Informal Summit held in Kuala Lumpur, the ASEAN leaders adopted the ASEAN Vision 2020, which binds the 10 member states to promote regional cooperation in the spirit of equality and partnership towards peace, progress, and prosperity in the region. This vision manifested in 2003 when the ASEAN leaders issued the Declaration of the ASEAN Concord II in Bali, Indonesia. The objective is to realize the ASEAN community by the year 2020. In January 2007, during the 12th ASEAN Summit in the ASEAN leaders avowed their commitment to fast-track the establishment of the ASEAN community and realize the vision by 2015. There are 3 pillars that make up the road towards realizing the ASEAN connectivity in 2015. There is the economic pillar, the political security pillar, and the socio-cultural pillar. Each has a blueprint which specifies the various programs, projects, and activities to achieve the vision. The ASEAN socio-cultural pillar outlines a bonded ASEAN community and founded on a common regional identity. The programs and activities are geared towards creating an environment where there is inclusive and sustainable growth, where the citizens of ASEAN have decent work and have access to quality health care. Among the activities under the ASEAN Political Security Community are the adoption of a regional code of conduct in the South China Sea, which supports the promotion of peaceful resolution of intra-regional differences. The ASEAN Economic Pillar aims to create a stable, prosperous, and highly competitive economic ASEAN. The activities, projects, and programs under this pillar towards the free movement of goods, free flow of skilled labor, among others. This means removal of tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. Enhanced cooperation among ASEAN University Network members to increase mobility for students and staff, among other actions. The Philippines, along with the other member states, is seen to benefit immensely with the upcoming integration. Philippine economists see the local workforce as one of the country's strongest points. On the other hand, Industries and companies who are not ready for the integration will also be greatly affected. The agriculture sector is seen as one of the vulnerable industries, given the present challenges, which are smuggling and climate change. Experts believe that the agri-sector needs to build capacity fast to be able to compete with the rest of the country members of ASEAN. For the People's Television, Sam Ramirez.
We will be back for more when PTV4's special coverage on the World Economic Forum on East Asia 2014 returns.
Live video from the Bacolod room of the Makati Shangri-La Hotel, where the delegates are awaiting the start of a session. It's entitled The Next Asia, or the Philippines, The Next Asian Miracle, and we will be bringing it to you live minutes from now. We will also be bringing you several sessions of the ongoing World Economic Forum live from the EDSA Shangri-La Hotel. From the Makati Shangri-La Hotel.
You know, it's a very momentous occasion for the Philippines here as we host the World Economic Forum here in Manila, as we can see the gains and progress that we have gained in the past few years, the investment grade upgrades, you know, all these economic fundamentals that the administration has been preparing.
And this time, Freddy Abando returns with a report on how Congress will figure into the inevitable reality that is the ASEAN community come 2015. Let's watch this.
ASEAN integration in 2015 is a major challenge for the Philippines in its bid to sustain growth and development. All trade barriers will be lifted to ensure the free flow of trade, labor, capital, and investments. A major concern is the flow of cheap goods from the region's member states to the Philippines.
The concept of integration is that we now lift all the tariff barriers, so wala na tayong tariff barriers. So that is the fear, but the fear is unfounded because since 2010, wala na. Nearly our tariff barriers is down to zero. And yet, we've never seen the spectrum of cheap products coming, let's say, from Thailand or Malaysia, flooding our markets. Wala na eh. Except for some sensitive agricultural products like rice, I think rice, swine, no? All the products are now zero rated.
The country is ready to contend with its ASEAN neighbors. In fact, the consensus is preparations are on schedule to enhance competitiveness in all sectors of the economy. An ASEAN economic community similar to the European Union offers great opportunities for the Philippines.
The push for reforms, the credibility of those reforms, the quality of our human capital, the management of our macro, financial, fiscal policies and programs. These are all built up in such a way that they inspire confidence in this country.
Congress will play a major role in enabling the country to reap the rewards of integration. There is measures to enhance the flow of foreign capital. The House is committed to the approval of the antitrust law to break the hold of cartels and monopolies on the economy. Amendments to the Foreign Investments Act and the modernization of the Customs Bureau to deal with the problem of smuggling. Add to this list amendments of the economic provisions of the Constitution, which is now under consideration in the House. These reforms are crucial in attracting foreign investments badly needed to generate jobs and reduce poverty incidents, especially in the countryside.
Once we get integrated, it's as if we have one economy. See? So that means to say we have to be competitive. Dito, that word competitive is very important. And we will be in competition with these people without any customs and tariff barriers, without and we here are of course studying how we can help our country be competitive.
To sustain that, we need investments. And to have investments, we need structural changes. First, in our constitution. Second, in our regulations. Let's first talk about the Constitution. You know that the Constitution is very restricted. No? Foreigners cannot come to invest. No? Now, what is the net effect of that? There is no competition. And when there is no competition, no, there is inefficiency.
For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abando reporting.
We talked of credit ratings, investments, and the ASEAN community. Let's see how the private stakeholders in commerce and industry see the forum's impact on their sector. We have with us Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis. He is the Honorary Chairman and Treasurer of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kathy.
Sir, how does your sector look at the World Economic Forum as a means of improving the state of the world, and what impact will it have on businesses?
We certainly would like to take this opportunity to be able to demonstrate to the high caliber attendance of the meeting that we have really progressed, and that we are really a beacon for investment, no? Considering that right now we're not doing very well with foreign direct investment. Perhaps they being here, having a first information on how we are, maybe that might attract some foreign direct investment.
Now, sir, what are the areas of concern that you feel need to be prioritized based on the published agenda of the World Economic Forum 2014?
Well, we do have the Asian integration, and we are trying to be able to work on the agenda so that we will be on the forefront. And I think we are a little bit behind in our addressing in the SMEs, no, especially financing. We would like to be able to get some lessons from our neighbors, from those who are attending, how they were able to address the issues of the SMEs, considering that there are 99% micro and small and medium enterprises in us, and we would like to see how they were able to address that and why we are behind in this area.
What areas need to be addressed when it comes to SMEs, sir? And do you need that the government is doing enough for the small and medium enterprises?
I think we are a little behind the area of financing. Is despite the fact that we have passed the Magna Carta for SMEs, which is basically how to finance the SMEs, we are not. It has not succeeded, and I think we are very much behind here. And if there is a problem that we will encounter in the competitiveness of our domestic industry come AEC, hands on, will be, I think, the inability of our SMEs to secure financing.
So you mentioned that this World Economic Forum can be actually a good occasion to meet with the delegates. Now, what would be the points of discussion when you meet with the different delegates of the different ASEAN countries?
Well, definitely area of cooperation and investment would be certainly be areas that we should look at, considering that many of them might be in a position to invest, and many of them are not very familiar with the country, and they being here with a first-hand glimpse at it, maybe this might be the catalyst for them to invest here.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis. We'll head to the Makati Shangri-La Hotel, where there is an ongoing session on the Philippines, the next Asian miracle. Let's watch this.
Well, so I'd like to start